My dear child, listen to me carefully for a moment because this message is not reaching you by accident, and if you have been praying for a long time, asking God when your situation will finally change, then what you are about to hear may be the answer your heart has been waiting for, because heaven has seen every tear you cried in silence and heard every prayer you whispered when no one else understood your pain. And today God wants to speak directly to your spirit and reveal something important about the prayers you thought were delayed. So stay with this message until the very end, because what God is about to reveal may give you the clarity, hope and confirmation you have been searching for. There are moments in life when you feel like heaven has gone silent, moments when you have prayed with tears in your eyes, moments when you have asked God the same question over and over again, wondering if your voice was ever heard. And tonight this message is for you, because God is saying something powerful to your spirit right now. He is saying that finally the season you prayed for is approaching, and the prayers that you thought were lost in the silence of heaven were actually being carefully prepared for the perfect moment of release. Because many times when God delays an answer, it is not rejection but preparation, it is not punishment but protection. And it is not because God forgot you, but because He was aligning people, circumstances, timing, and divine favor in ways that your human mind could never fully understand. And there were nights when you cried alone, asking God if anything would ever change. There were days when you felt like nothing was moving forward, no matter how hard you tried, and there were moments when you almost gave up hope completely because it seemed like everyone else was receiving blessings while your life stayed the same. But what you could not see was that God was working behind every closed door. He was moving through every hidden situation, and He was quietly shifting things that needed to move before your breakthrough could arrive. And right now heaven wants you to know that your prayers were never ignored, your tears were never wasted, and your faith was never meaningless, because every single prayer you whispered in desperation was recorded, every moment you trusted God when things made no sense was noticed, and every time you chose faith instead of giving up, you were stepping closer to the moment that is about to unfold in your life. Because God is saying that the waiting season you walked through was necessary to build the strength, wisdom, and faith that you will need for the blessings that are coming. And the truth is, if God had answered your prayer earlier, you might not have been ready to carry what He is about to place in your hands now, because sometimes the delay is the training ground where God prepares your heart for the weight of the miracle that is on its way. And right now something is shifting in the spiritual realm on your behalf, because heaven has heard enough of your prayers, heaven has seen enough of your patience, and heaven has decided that the time has come for movement, the time has come for doors to begin opening, and the time has come for the answers you have been waiting for to finally start appearing in ways you never expected. And God is reminding you that even when you thought nothing was happening, something powerful was being built in the unseen realm. Because divine timing does not operate according to human clocks, and the answers you wanted yesterday were being prepared for a moment that would bring you greater peace, greater stability, and greater purpose. And what is about to happen in your life will not just answer your prayer, but it will also reveal why the waiting was necessary all along, because the blessing that is coming will arrive at the exact moment when it can no longer be taken away, when it can no longer be delayed, and when it will create the greatest impact in your life and in the lives of the people around you. And right now God is asking you to hold on to your faith just a little longer, because the spiritual battle around your destiny has been intense, and the enemy tried everything to convince you that your prayers were useless. The enemy tried to plant doubt in your mind, telling you that nothing would ever change. and the enemy tried to exhaust your spirit so that you would stop believing before your miracle arrived. But God is saying that the very fact you are hearing this message right now is proof that your faith survived the storm and that your prayers have reached the throne of heaven. And the moment is coming when the same people who saw you struggling will see you rising. The same people who doubted your future will witness the favor of God moving in your life, and the same situations that once caused you pain will be replaced by testimonies that reveal the power of divine timing, because God is not only answering your prayers but He is doing it in a way that will leave no doubt that His hand was involved in every detail. And when the answers begin to appear, you will realize that God was not late, He was precise. He was not silent, He was strategic, and He was not ignoring you. He was positioning you for something far greater than what you originally asked for, because sometimes when you pray for a small breakthrough, God prepares a life-changing transformation instead, and the moment that transformation begins, you will understand why heaven needed time to arrange everything in your favor. Because the blessings that are coming will not be temporary relief but lasting change, not a short moment of happiness but a new chapter of purpose, and God wants you to know that the prayers you whispered in your weakest moments are about to become the testimonies you will speak about in your strongest moments, because what is about to unfold in your life will remind you that God never abandons the people who trust Him, and He never forgets the voices that call out to Him in faith even when the world around them seems to be falling apart. And as this moment draws closer, there is something God wants you to understand deep within your spirit, because the journey you have been walking was never meaningless even though it felt painful at times, because every delay, every closed door, every moment when things did not work out the way you expected was quietly shaping the path that is now unfolding before you, and there were many nights when you wondered if your prayers were echoing into an empty sky. There were days when you looked around and saw others moving forward while your life seemed frozen in place, and there were moments when discouragement tried to convince you that maybe nothing would ever change. But what you did not realize in those heavy moments was that heaven was carefully aligning everything for a breakthrough that would arrive at the exact moment it was meant to appear, because God never wastes a season of waiting, and He never ignores the heart that continues to seek Him even in uncertainty. And while you were praying for answers, God was preparing opportunities. While you were asking for relief, God was strengthening your spirit, and while you were wondering why nothing was happening, God was quietly removing obstacles that could have destroyed the blessings He is now preparing to place in your life, because sometimes the greatest miracles are formed during the longest periods of silence, and the greatest victories are built during the seasons when it feels like nothing is changing. And right now the spiritual atmosphere around your life is beginning to shift in ways that you cannot yet fully see, but you will soon experience, because there are things that were once blocked that are about to open, there are answers that were once delayed that are about to appear, and there are opportunities that once seemed impossible that are about to come directly into your path. And when these things begin to happen, you may find yourself wondering how everything suddenly changed so quickly. But the truth is, it did not happen suddenly at all, because heaven has been preparing this moment for longer than you realize, and every prayer you spoke during your moments of desperation was another seed planted into the soil of your destiny. And seeds do not grow instantly, but they grow silently beneath the surface until the moment arrives when they finally break through into the light, and that moment of breakthrough is approaching for you now. Because God is saying that the prayers you have repeated again and again are about to be answered in ways that will restore your hope and remind you that your faith was never misplaced, and the things that once caused you to question everything will soon become the very stories that strengthen your belief in divine timing, because when God moves in your life He does not simply fix one small problem but He begins transforming entire areas of your journey so that the future ahead of you becomes stronger, clearer and more purposeful than anything you have experienced before. And the reason you had to walk through those difficult seasons was because the strength that was built inside you will now allow you to carry the blessings that are coming without losing your balance or your faith, because God is not just answering your prayers for today but preparing you for the life you will step into tomorrow, and that life will contain opportunities, peace and clarity that once felt very far away. And there were times when the enemy tried to convince you that your story would always remain the same, that the struggles you faced would never end, and that your prayers would remain unanswered forever. But God is declaring right now that those lies are losing their power because the moment of change is closer than you think, and what once seemed impossible is now being prepared for manifestation in your reality, because heaven has already begun moving things into position. And while you may not yet see the full picture, you will soon begin noticing small signs that something different is happening. Doors that once stayed closed will start opening without resistance, people who were distant may suddenly become supportive, and opportunities that once felt unreachable may begin appearing in ways that surprise you, and these moments will remind you that God was working long before you noticed the results, because the prayers you spoke months or even years ago were not forgotten but were simply waiting for the moment when the answer could arrive in the most powerful way. And when that moment arrives, you will feel a deep sense of peace that confirms that heaven has heard your voice all along, and you will realize that even during the quietest seasons God was standing beside you, guiding your steps through every challenge and every uncertainty, and the blessings that are approaching now will not only answer your prayers but will also restore the hope that may have faded during the long waiting period. Because God knows exactly how much you have endured, and He knows the strength it took for you to keep believing. When circumstances tried to convince you to give up, and that perseverance did not go unnoticed in heaven, because every moment you continued praying, every moment you chose faith instead of fear, and every moment you trusted that God was still in control even when you could not see the outcome, was building the foundation for the miracle that is now moving closer to your life. And when it arrives, you will understand that the journey you walked was never leading you toward disappointment but toward a moment of divine fulfillment that was always meant to be part of your story. And as you continue listening to this message, there is something even deeper that God wants you to realize, because the season you are entering now is not just about receiving one simple answer to a prayer but about witnessing the unfolding of a plan that has been carefully designed for your life long before you ever realized it. Because there were moments in your past when you felt completely uncertain about where your journey was going, and there were times when the path ahead looked confusing and unclear, and during those moments you kept asking God for direction, asking Him for a sign, asking Him to show you whether your faith was leading you towards something meaningful or whether you were simply holding on to hope for something that might never happen. But what you could not see at that time was that heaven was quietly shaping your future step by step. Because God does not rush the process of preparing a life that carries purpose and transformation, and every season you walked through was building something inside you that would eventually allow you to stand strong when the blessings you prayed for finally began to appear in your life. And sometimes the reason it felt like nothing was happening was because God was working in places you could not see. He was removing obstacles that might have harmed you. He was redirecting situations that could have delayed your destiny even further. And He was preparing people, opportunities, and moments that would one day align perfectly with the prayers you continue to speak in faith. And right now heaven wants you to understand that the answers you are about to receive are not random events or coincidences but the result of a divine plan that has been unfolding throughout every chapter of your journey. Because even the painful experiences you went through were not meaningless but were shaping the strength and wisdom you now carry within your spirit. And there were times when you questioned why certain doors closed, why certain people walked away, and why certain plans collapsed even after you prayed so deeply for them to succeed. But the truth is that many of those moments were acts of protection rather than loss, because God knew that some paths would lead you away from the life He intended for you. And sometimes the greatest form of love heaven can show is closing a door that would have eventually led to heartbreak or regret. And now that you are approaching the moment when your prayers are finally about to be answered, you will begin to see how every delay and every redirection was guiding you towards something far greater than what you originally imagined, because the blessings that are approaching now are not fragile or temporary but strong enough to remain part of your life for a long time. And God wants you to recognize that the patience you practiced during your waiting season has strengthened your faith in ways that will now allow you to fully appreciate the miracle that is about to unfold. Because many people ask for blessings but not everyone develops the endurance required to receive them with wisdom and gratitude, and your journey has given you that endurance. It has taught you how to remain hopeful even when answers seem distant, and it has shown you that true faith is not simply believing when things are easy but trusting God even when circumstances make no sense at all. And right now heaven is acknowledging that perseverance, because the prayers you continue to speak during your most uncertain moments are now rising as testimonies that will soon reveal the power of divine timing. And when the answers begin to appear, you may feel a mixture of relief, gratitude, and amazement, because the same situations that once caused you anxiety will suddenly begin shifting in your favor, and the changes may come faster than you expect, because once God decides that the time has arrived for movement, nothing in this world can stop what He has planned for you. And the people who once doubted your future may soon witness a transformation that they cannot explain, because the favor of God does not require approval from others, and it does not depend on the opinions of those who failed to see your potential. And the blessings that are coming will not only change certain circumstances around you but will also restore the confidence that may have been shaken during your seasons of waiting. Because God never intended for your story to end in struggle or disappointment but in growth, purpose, and fulfillment. And right now the spiritual atmosphere surrounding your life is shifting in ways that are preparing the path for those long-awaited answers to finally appear. And even though you cannot yet see every detail of what is about to happen, you can trust that heaven is already arranging the pieces so that when the moment arrives, everything will align in a way that feels unmistakably guided by the hand of God. And when you look back at the road you traveled, you will understand that the waiting season was never wasted time but the foundation for a testimony that will inspire others who are walking through their own periods of uncertainty. Because your story will remind them that prayers spoken in faith are never ignored, and that even when heaven seems quiet, God is still moving behind the scenes, preparing answers that will arrive exactly when they are meant to change everything. And now, as this message comes closer to its final moment, there is something powerful God wants to settle deep within your heart, because the season you are stepping into is not just the ending of a long period of waiting but the beginning of a chapter that will remind you why your faith was worth holding on to through every moment of doubt, every night of prayer, and every day when you wondered if anything would ever change. Because the truth is that the story of your life has never been defined by the struggles you faced but by the strength that grew inside you while you were walking through them, and there were many moments when you felt like you were standing alone in your battle, asking God why the answers were taking so long, asking Him why doors kept closing and why the path forward seemed so uncertain. But what you could not see at that time was that heaven was never distant from you for even a single moment, because every prayer you whispered was reaching the heart of God, and every tear you shed was being noticed in ways that your human understanding could not fully grasp. And the reason this message is reaching you now is because God wants you to prepare your spirit for what is about to unfold in your life. Because the answers to the prayers you have repeated so many times are now closer than they have ever been before. And when they arrive, you will realize that the delay you experienced was never a sign of abandonment but a sign that heaven was carefully preparing the perfect moment for your breakthrough, because God does not release blessings randomly but releases them when the timing will create the greatest impact and the greatest peace within your life. And there will soon be moments when you look around at your circumstances and realize that something has truly changed, because the things that once caused you stress will begin to lose their power over you. The doors that once seemed impossible to open will begin to move with unexpected ease, and the hope that once felt distant will return stronger than ever before. And during those moments you will understand that the God you prayed to during your most difficult nights was listening the entire time, and the faith you held on to during the silence was the very thing that kept you moving forward until the day when heaven decided that the waiting season had reached its end, and what is about to happen will not only answer the prayers you have been speaking but will also restore your confidence in the journey that lies ahead of you. Because sometimes the greatest miracle is not just the blessing itself but the realization that God never stopped guiding your life even when you felt unsure about where you were going. And there will come a moment very soon when you feel a deep sense of peace settle over your heart, because you will recognize that the chapter of waiting has finally given way to the chapter of fulfillment. And when that realization arrives, you will carry a testimony that proves that faith is never wasted and that patience always produces something meaningful in the end, because the God who heard you during your weakest moments is the same God who is now preparing to show you what happens when prayers meet divine timing. And the breakthrough that is approaching will not just change a single situation in your life but will begin shaping a future that reflects the purpose and direction that heaven has always intended for you to walk in. And as you step into that future, remember the lessons you learned during the quiet seasons, because those lessons will keep your heart grounded and grateful when the blessings finally begin to appear around you. And the story you will tell one day about this season will not be a story of disappointment but a story of perseverance, faith, and divine faithfulness, because you kept believing even when the answers were not yet visible, and that belief has carried you to the very edge of the moment you prayed for, because God is saying clearly to your spirit now that the prayers you thought were delayed are actually about to be answered in ways that will remind you that heaven always listens and heaven always moves at the perfect time. And as this message reaches its final words, hold on to this truth with confidence, that the waiting you endured was never empty and the faith you carried was never in vain, because right now the answers you have been hoping for are moving closer, and the season of fulfillment that God promised is finally beginning to unfold in your life. And as this message gently comes to its final moment, God wants to leave one clear truth in your heart, because everything you have walked through has been leading to this turning point in your life. And even though there were days when you felt tired of waiting and nights when your prayers felt heavy with uncertainty, the faith you continued to hold on to has brought you closer to the answer. Then you realize, because heaven never forgets the voice that continues to pray even during silence, and God never abandons the person who keeps trusting Him when circumstances try to say otherwise. And now the season you once prayed for is quietly beginning to unfold around you, because the doors that once refused to open will soon begin to move. The situations that once looked impossible will start shifting in ways that surprise you. And the peace you have been asking God for will finally settle within your heart, and when these changes begin you will understand that the waiting was never meant to break you but to prepare you for the blessing that was always on its way, and God is reminding you now to keep your faith strong for just a little while longer, because the answers you have been asking for are closer than they have ever been before. And the testimony that will rise from your life will one day remind others that prayers spoken with faith are never wasted, and that divine timing always arrives at the exact moment it is needed. And if this message has touched your heart, take a moment to thank God in your spirit and hold on to the belief that your prayers are not only heard but are already moving toward the moment when they will finally be answered. If this message spoke to you, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need this reminder today, because sometimes a single message can restore hope in a heart that almost gave up believing.